Bill Clinton, the worst president in American history, a man who sold out on national security, a man who killed innocent men, women, and children in Waco, Texas, a man who killed thousands of innocent Serbian civilians in order to get Monica Lewinsky off the headline, was suddenly turned into this aw shucks kind of guy who really wasn't that much different than most conservatives, that they were all pulling for the same thing. Well, let me remind you of something. On April 19th, 1993, Bill Clinton gassed and burned to death 86 Seventh-day Adventists. There were children in that church at the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. There were children there, and Janet Sterno should be in an orange jumpsuit for life for overseeing the assault upon that church down there in Waco, Texas. Now, the death of 80 or so poor Americans, black and white, young and old, who were incinerated and gassed because they didn't listen to Bill Clinton and Janet Sterno, is really chump change compared to what Clinton did to the Serbian people. He teamed up with the socialists at NATO, mainly Javier Solano, the socialist leader of Spain, and the other socialists in Europe, to mercilessly bomb the civilian infrastructure of the former Yugoslavia. Now, he did not target the military. I know you don't want to hear this, but I'm going to tell you what he did, because you're not going to hear it from Fox or CNN or ABC or CBS or NBC. But you're going to hear it on the Savage Nation. He took our airplanes, and he had them repainted with NATO markings, and they bombed Belgrade, Yugoslavia. Old men who had fought the Nazis in Yugoslavia in World War II and rescued our airmen looked up with tears in their eyes and said the last time they had seen Belgrade being bombed was when Hitler released his Stuka bombers on Belgrade in 1941. Are you proud of the legacy? Are you happy with the fact that this little quiet man from Hope, the little gray-haired, saxophone-playing good man Clinton did this? He bombed homes, trains, schools, power stations, hospitals, and TV stations. 60% of NATO targets were civilian. This is according to Edward S. Herman in December of 1999. 60% of the targets of Bill Clinton and his socialist buddies were civilian, including 33 hospitals, 344 schools, as well as 144 major industrial plants and a large petrochemical plant, whose bombing by Bill Clinton caused a pollution catastrophe that is still being felt today. John Pilger wrote that the list of civilian targets by Bill Clinton included, quote, houses, hotels, libraries, youth centers, theaters, museums, churches, and 14th century monasteries that were on the World Heritage List. Farms were bombed and their crops set afire. But I'll tell you something else I remember. Bill Clinton bombed every bridge over the Danube River. Now, unto itself, that means nothing to you. Do you know that to this day there's not one photograph of the bombing of the bridges over the Danube River? Not one archival photo was ever released of the bombing that Bill Clinton conducted against the Serbian civilian population. I challenge you to find one picture of the damage that Bill Clinton did to the Serbian civilian infrastructure. Now, according to Human Rights Watch, over 500 Serbian civilians were killed in 37,465 bombing sorties over a period of 78 days. They were the worst 78 days of my life in radio because I couldn't believe what I was watching. The main reason is that this was a big lie, the reason our men in the Air Force were used as, in a way, I'm sorry to tell you, mercenaries. They were the Hessians of our time. Our American Air Force was turned into a mercenary force for Bill Clinton and his NATO buddies and his socialist friends, primarily to make Europe safe for an invasion by Muslims from Albania, number one. But it also coincidentally was important to Bill Clinton because they needed to gin up a fake war in order to drive Monica Lewinsky off the headlines. And if you remember, a movie was made about it, mocking the very thing he was doing, and it was called Wag the Dog. This was entirely a Wag the Dog war. The entire war was a Wag the Dog war. And I'll go a step further. You say, well, what about the 800,000 ethnic Albanians who were driven from their homes? They were driven from their homes when the NATO bombs started to fall. That's when the humanitarian crisis originated. There are other aspects of Bill Clinton's real legacy. I don't expect you to want to relive the entire 8 years of the reign of terror of the Clinton gang, but the travel office scandal was one. The use of the FBI files collected by the White House an employee who was never hired by anyone. There was no record of where campaign money came from. There was no record of where U.S. military technology went. There was no record of whether national security was endangered as a result. There were reprisals against the Resolution Trust Corporation investigators. There were the arrest of the critics. There were frivolous lawsuits by administration officials to silence their critics. There was the IRS audits of political opponents. There was a politicized Justice Department under the worst terrorist in the history of the department, Janet Sterno. There were payments to Webster Hubbell. There was the Justice Department's attempts to block independent counsel Smaltz's investigations. There was the Rose Law Firm files, which were under subpoena, which disappeared and mysteriously reappeared in Hillary's office. There was the secret healthcare task force in violation of federal law. There was the use of government assets and personnel to address various personal scandals. Nobody knows what happened to Vince Foster's and Ron Brown's files following their deaths. There was the alleged sale of seats on Commerce Department trade missions. There was John Wong's activities in the Commerce Department and his contacts with former Lippo employers and possibly the Chinese government. There were threats and attacks against independent counsel Kenneth Starr. First of all, you got to remember Bill Clinton was impeached. Don't ever forget that. The man was impeached by the United States Congress. It wasn't maybe impeached. He was impeached, damn it. Here's why I'm pissed off. Judgment, and this is from the Constitution of the United States of America. Judgment in cases of impeachment shall not extend further than removal from office and disqualification. Listen to this. Disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. But the party convicted shall be nevertheless be liable and subject to indictments, trial, judgment, and punishment according to law. But the point is, the man was impeached. Bill Clinton was impeached. And it said he should be disqualified to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. You want to whitewash Bill Clinton? Good luck to you.
Savage.